Everyone, and welcome to this week's episode. Today, I am doing an interview with one of my dear friends, Anne. She is a strong powerlifter. She's also a content creator, online coach. She's got so many things going on for her, and so I'm excited to hear more about her story and what got her into empowering women, empowering her own personal strength through the sport of powerlifting as a woman. And I'll hand it off to Anne so that way she can introduce herself. So tell me about yourself, Anne.
I wish I had time to prep this. Oh
You're
my God.
fine.
Okay, yeah. I'm Anne. What am I now? I'm a national level power lifter.
Woo!
Um, um, I don't even know what intro I'm trying to give myself. Also online coach with powerlifting and just strength-based online coach, content creator, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah,
influencer. Yeah.
love it for you. So I want to ask, maybe we should get into what powerlifting is for no people who aren't I just realized for those of you who aren't familiar with the strength sports, what powerlifting is, and I guess what got you into powerlifting.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point to make. Whenever I throw powerlifting out there, I just assume that people know it's like squat,
I
bench,
know.
deadlift.
Yeah.
It's like not that hard to know, but if you're not in that community, not in that space, then yeah, it's like, what is this thing?
Mhm.
Yeah, so basically, we try and max out on squat, bench, and deadlift all in one day.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's, I guess, that's a very brief summary of what powerlifting is.
Mhm.
Um, the way that I got into it, how did I get into it? When people ask me this, it's always such a weird answer because
Yeah, there's so much building up to it.
I was always into strength training and doing heavy compounds. I obviously I feel like most people get into the gym with some physical goal. It's like they
Yeah.
want to look a certain way.
Mhm.
So that's what got me into the gym
Same.
and training of mostly hypertrophy stuff. But I always loved squat, bench, deadlift, and just seeing how heavy I could push those.
Mhm.
And then I think COVID happened and my brother built us a home gym, and it was mostly just a barbell and plates. So it was like, well, if I want to do this powerlifting thing, I got access to only a barbell and plates. That's kind of what I need for powerlifting.
Right.
Uh, so my brother and I kind of got into doing it at home over COVID. And I remember he was really interested in signing up for a powerlifting meet, and I was just looking at the records for my province, and I
Mhm.
was like, wow, these girls are so strong. I could never compete. I'm never going to be that strong. And I just remember feeling so discouraged because I was like, I'm not strong enough.
Mhm.
Um, so that happened, but after training a bit more and getting more into powerlifting after my brother kind of planted that seed in my head, I was like, I feel like just competing at a meet would be really, really fun. I don't even need to set records or anything. I can just focus on beating myself, doing my own thing. So my brother and I found a powerlifting meet and we signed up for it. We were, I think, 4 weeks out. And it's funny because now, whenever anyone gets into powerlifting, they're always like, oh, I need a coach. I need to follow a program. I need to have all the equipment. I need to know what I'm doing.
Right.
And I kind of just hopped right into it. I
Mhm.
was I didn't have a coach. I didn't even start lifting with a lifting belt or knee sleeves or wrist straps or anything like that. I was like, I'm just gonna show up and lift heavier. It'll be fine. So I did a short 4 week prep where it was really bad. I kind of just tried to max out every day. Wouldn't recommend doing that.
Same.
There's a lot of mistakes that I made for that prep, but I just wanted to compete, PR for myself, and just see what that experience is like. And it was obviously life changing because I did that meet, fell in love with the sport. Then I found a coach and started building. And now now I hold all a bunch of provincial records, some national records, and
So cool.
funny because at first I was looking at I remember looking at the records and I was like, squatting 300 pounds. I
Mhm.
don't think I can ever do that.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I'm so glad that you brought up all those points because I had the same thing. I feel like we all have these limiting beliefs, like our first instinct to say like I can't do that. And it's like, why is that our first our first instinct and our first affirmation to tell ourselves? It's like it may seem unattainable, but just like affirming that you can do it. It's like, no, you can't do it at that moment. You can obviously, now that your body is literally capable of doing it. And I'm sure you're so proud of yourself, and like the feeling of accomplishment of knowing like one day in the past that you were thinking, I can't do that. And now like here you are, like proud but never satisfied, that kind of thing. And
100%. Yeah.
it's a really cool feeling to just know. So anyone who is experiencing these limiting beliefs of like, oh, I want to do that, but I can't, or that's extremely impressive, but for some reason I feel like I'm not capable. Like me and Anne felt the exact same way. And there are so many people, the people that you look up to, where you look up to them and you say, I wish I could do that. They had the same feeling for other people. So just don't be your biggest hype man, honestly. Like flip the script and start saying, I will do that one day. You know what I mean? But I completely relate to your story about getting into powerlifting. My first meet too, I feel like some people take what they want to do and they make it a little complicated, almost as an excuse to like put it off. Like, oh, like I'll start competing when I get a coach, or like I don't have the funds for all these fancy equipment. And it's like, you don't need fancy equipment, right? You just need yourself, the drive, the things that like don't cost money. So I think that especially for your first one, it's about the experience. And like you said, competing against yourself. You're not like, I know you are literally competing against other people, but in a way, it's like you're doing it for yourself. You're seeing if you would like the experience, if you want to do it again. And that's what I'm going to do here for my first show. So just full send it, honestly. That's the biggest takeaway.
And even to this day, every competition that I do it for myself. I always just think like, oh, I'm just trying to beat my old self, like
Right.
just be better than I was last time. And
Exactly.
if that's the best, then that's the best. Like I'm not like too stressed about like the competition part. So
Exactly. You can get slightly better each day, and imagine like how much that would compound in a year. So just focus on you. Like you don't need to compare yourself. No one else is comparing you to other people. I know it's quite literally a competition for the fun and competitive aspect of it, but it really is at the end of the day a competition against yourself, and really pushing yourself both physically and mentally. Oh my gosh, I came up with another question that I didn't write down, but I was curious because since I mentioned physically and mentally, what has like the mental challenges been for you when you like lift, or like when you have like bad lifting days? Because I know I had them all the time and it would like literally suck because I would like, I'm not strong.
yeah, that's why I think like the mental part of powerlifting is always so hard for me because I I'm so quick to get in my head and to like what's the word, catastrophize,
Yeah.
like spiral. Like
Mhm.
one bad lifting day does not define you. It does not take away all of the progress that you've made. Like progress isn't linear.
That's true.
And like everything comes and goes in waves, and you kind of just have to learn to ride the wave. So it's getting like a lot better. But after being like I guess I'm kind of like more like intermediate level now with powerlifting. So after passing the like beginner newbie phase where everything was just like up, and now coming to this phase where it's kind of like slowed down a little bit, I have to put in like a lot of work just to get like the slightest bit of like progress now.
Right. I
Um,
see what you're saying.
so it's like slowed down, but you just have to like trust the process and like keep showing up and keep putting in the work because
Mhm. Yeah, that's true. Especially like at first, like they call it like newbie gains, like because you're starting from zero, and then you'll see these gains and like progress like instantly, and then you kind of get used to it, almost like your body gets used to the stimulus that you're putting on it, so you kind of have to work like a little bit harder, if that makes sense. Do you relate?
yeah. So
Yes.
yeah, it's, and I guess it's like not only like working harder physically, but working harder like mentally too. Because yeah, like putting in that work physically isn't easy, and it's getting harder. So
I know. I was like so happy that you mentioned the fact that progress isn't linear because it sounds so obvious, but I feel like I forget that all the time. It's like one bad day, even that, it's like something you can learn from, if that makes sense. Like you just take away, okay, this is one bad day, but I can bounce back from it, or I can learn from it, or like I can figure out what I did this day to make it what I can do next time to make it less of a bad day, if that makes
yeah,
sense.
and like that's such a good way to approach bad days too. Like it's like, okay, this happened.
Mm.
I'm not gonna beat myself up over it, but like take it as an opportunity to learn and to grow.
Mm.
Because I think doing it that way is a lot harder than or it's easier to be like, oh, I had a bad day. Now I'm just gonna like feel like shit and like let it affect me a lot. But if you're like, okay, no, it happened. Let's try and grow from it. Let's keep going. Like that's a lot harder, but you're gonna get a lot more out of it.
Yeah. One thing that's helped me a lot is almost separating myself from my emotions and like looking at it from an objective standpoint, almost like observing it, like, okay, like I'm allowed to feel upset. I'm allowed to be sad that today didn't go as planned. This didn't go as planned. This meet didn't go as planned, but not like sulk in it or wallow in it or make it worse than it needs to be. Just like
Mhm.
allow myself to feel those emotions, like say like, hey, this is super valid, like I'm allowed to feel this way, but not like harp on it, like you said, spiral and make things worse and just kind of sit in that feeling for too long.
And honestly, like the longer you sit in that feeling of like misery and like just like feeling sorry for yourself, like the harder it is to pull yourself out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right. Okay, so my next question is, what are some of the unique challenges that you've encountered as a female powerlifter? Obviously, it's a strength sport and all things fitness are like very male dominated. So specifically, like, are there some challenges, maybe stereotypes, some hate maybe that you've encountered that you want to share with us?
honestly, like I would say overall, my experience has been pretty good with
Yeah.
powerlifting. I would say like obviously there's way less representation for girls.
Mhm.
Um, and I think there's also like I feel like there is like a lack of respect too for women. And just like the fact that we can't lift as much, like just like the amount.
Yeah.
And I even heard I was at the gym one day and I heard this group of guys talking and they were making jokes about how the deadlift platforms should have like a like you know how some like roller coasters, those rides have like a you have to be this height to ride the roller coaster. They were making jokes that were like, oh, you have to lift this much to use the deadlift platform. Because this girl was like lifting like the like 10 kilos, so like the little greens on the deadlift platform.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the fuck
Yeah.
is wrong with you guys? Like, it's the fucking gym. How else is she supposed to make progress and learn and ride your ride? Like, obviously she's gonna start somewhere, but everyone deserves space in the gym.
Exactly. Even
Like
if
when
it's just
I
the
started,
bar, even if it's just the bar, even if it's just
Mhm.
going weight.
Like I started with just the bar too. I remember when I my first time deadlifting, I did like 10 pounds on each side. I definitely had bad form because my back hurt for like the next week, and I was like, yeah, I'm never deadlifting again.
Yeah.
Um, but like if I heard someone say like, oh, you need to lift at least this much to use a deadlift platform, like I would have felt so discouraged, like would have
Mhm.
never tried again. And I was like, and I don't know if they would have said the same if it was like a weaker guy using the platform or just like,
Right, exactly. You make a really good point.
but it like that just like rubbed me the wrong way. I was like,
Yeah. Can you hear and see me okay?
she's gonna start somewhere. Girls like bench, like just like, oh,
Hello?
I can hear you now. Can you hear
Okay.
me?
Yes, you froze for a second. but you're
Okay.
fine.
Is it okay now?
Yeah, you're fine now.
Okay, perfect. But yeah, I would say sometimes there's just like there's lack of respect there, or
Mhm.
even for like the amounts. Um, but like relatively, what was I forget what I was gonna say.
Like overall, you've had a good experience.
Or yeah. And I don't know if I'm just like naive though, and I don't notice these things
Mhm.
because I'm very like, I don't know, I a lot of things just kind of like go over my head.
Yeah.
Um, and I noticed that the other day when like this guy made like a sexist comment toward me,
Oh wow.
and I
What
was
do you?
with a friend, and or I was at work. I work at a gym,
Uh-huh.
and this guy came up to me and he was like, he's gonna say something like about how like I should go confront someone on the weight floor. I forget what it was, but he walked right by me and he was like, "You're a lady, you don't want to hear this." And then he went to like my male coworker. So it was like, what, can I not handle what's going on because I'm a girl?
Mm.
I didn't really process it that way, but afterwards, like my coworker, he was like, that was so like sexist. And I was like, oh, was it? So like a lot of these things go over my head, but now I'm like, I think now I'm starting to notice it a bit more.
Right.
Unfortunate, but yeah. And then with powerlifting too, even girls' sports are like fairly new. Like girls have just gotten their space in sports.
Right.
And with powerlifting, there's a big debate about like trans people in powerlifting. So like the federation that I compete in, trans women can compete with the women. All they have to say is like, oh, I identify as a woman. You don't have to have like any proof or anything, or there's no like your like hormone levels have to be a certain way. You can just show up and identify as whatever.
Mhm.
Um, and some guy, it was like all over the news, that some guy, like a cis man, signed up for a powerlifting meet, and he was like, I'm just gonna identify as a female because like those are the rules around it. So he competed, this man who had like a full grown beard competed as a female and then like set the unofficial like world record just to make
Oh.
a joke out of that rule. And it is hard. So I'm kind of like going into like transport inclusion too. I think it's
Yeah.
very hard to find a space and a medium that everyone is happy with. But even there, like as a biological woman competing in powerlifting, it's like we've fought really hard to have this space to compete. And like we're still fighting for like that respect and stuff. And to have like trans women come in like that, it's now it's also like, ugh. So
Right.
yeah.
That's very sad that, a cis man would almost disrespect all the progress we as a society has made just to
Yeah.
set some records. It's like you literally it doesn't even mean anything because you know that you cheated your way through it. Obviously, if it was like someone who actually is a trans woman, then it's like, okay, that's like fine, fair. But for someone to like make a joke out of female inclusivity in sports is very sad to me. I actually haven't heard of that.
I mean, he actually did it to kind of like draw attention to that rule because the guy who did it is a really high level powerlifting coach.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so he did it so that they would make a change to that rule because
I'll look
like
in.
it's us as females can't really do anything because
Yeah,
it's like what am I gonna do? Go sign up as a man, and then they're not gonna be mad that I compete as a man because
yeah,
I can't set any world records as a man.
right.
Um, but if this really big guy came and like he's like a renowned coach too, like he's well known. If he did that, it was more he did it in a way to like help women.
Mhm.
Uh,
Interesting.
yeah.
I'll have to look into that.
Yeah. I think his name's Alvi Silverberg. I forget his last name, but yeah, he's like a Team Canada head coach.
Interesting. Huh. What federation?
And the CPU, so like up in Canada.
Oh, interesting. Oh, I'll look into it. But yeah, I agree. My personal experience has been like generally good too. Obviously, there are going to be sexist people wherever you go. You can't really ignore that. It's going to happen no matter like if you're even a powerlifter or not. Just being a female in this world, you're going to encounter some like lack of respect. And so like it's happened, but I feel like my experience too has been generally positive because it, if anything, you feel more empowered. And then most people in the community will support you. Most people in the community are like super nice. And even like when I first started out, a lot of the guys I would be intimidated by. But it's like now I talk to them and it's like they're literally the nicest people ever. So it's not even anything crazy like that. So I'm glad
Yeah.
to hear that your experience was generally positive. I feel like a lot of people might be avoiding going into it because they're scared of like what that might look for them. But for both of us, like we've had positive experiences as female lifters.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask what your experience was with like bad body image, and how you navigate and work around that issue.
I feel like still a work in progress.
Same, you know.
Definitely, but powerlifting has definitely helped me grow away from the idea that like my smallest self is my best self, and grow away from like just looking in the mirror all the time and like defining my worth with what I saw in the mirror. Has definitely helped me a lot with that, because it's like body dysmorphia is so real. Like my body realistically isn't changing all that much week to week, but what I see in the mirror, sometimes I'm like, oh wow, I'm like really big right now. Like no, you're probably not. Which is why like I really love the strength sports, and just lifting and focusing on what you can lift.
Mhm.
And the gym that I go to now, sorry, this is kind of off topic. The gym that I go to now, I also, it's like powerlifting, CrossFit, Olympic weightlifting gym. And the like powerlifting women, yes, are very cool, but like Olympic weightlifting women and CrossFit women, they are fucking jacked. And just like they really don't care what their bodies look like, because like they're also like performance sports. And I don't know, like seeing that too, and just I'm like, wow, you guys are jacked and powerful and strong ass females. I'm like, I want to be like that too. So yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that what helps me is just remembering that it's quite literally all in your head. Like it's not real. Because one day I'll feel like I look like shit, and the next I feel I'm like feeling myself, but it's like nothing changed in between those 2 days. Like I didn't instantly gain like 30 pounds, or I didn't instantly lose 30 pounds in between those 2 days. It's all like perspective. So again,
Yeah.
like just almost like I don't want to say ignore it, but kind of just like take some of that pressure away from a body's like appearance focused, and acknowledging all like the good things your body does do for you. Like you said, like the physical limits of what your body can do is so cool. And once you like start treating your body like you love it by treating exercise as a form of self-care, a form of self-love, I think that's like a good way to deal with that body image.
Yeah. And it's definitely, yeah, like you said, it's definitely all in your head.
Mhm.
You see yourself. And yeah.
Speaking
So
of self-care, how do you prioritize self-care? While I'm sure like you're super busy with your coaching, with obviously powerlifting training, with content creation, how do you like find balance, but also like manage all of these things and take time for yourself?
I'm getting a lot better at having my boundaries,
Yeah,
with,
same. It's
with
so
like work
important.
and lifting, and then self-care too. This past week, while I've been getting like my online coaching stuff up and going, I've like completely violated my boundaries. Um, oh, like, which is okay because I'm like hustling right now, but
Yeah.
usually I'm really good at being like having that boundary, or like every night I try to read before I go to sleep, and like set like at least 30 minutes to just like wind down. Um, because I know that that really helps me just to like calm down at the end of each day, reflect on each day, and then like have like a mental reset so I can like start fresh the next morning. I think I've gotten pretty good at that. And yeah, like I said, having that boundary and like making myself do that, because some days I'll be like, it would be nice to like scroll on my phone today. Um, but then I know I'd probably like stay on my phone for way too long, or like it just wouldn't be as nice and like relaxing before going to bed, even if it's like what's easy to do right now, you know?
Yeah,
So
implementing those like habits so that way, even on days that you don't want to, it's like, well, I've been keeping up this like streak almost for so long. Like it's a habit. It's like part of my daily routine. Like I'm still going to give myself that time, that space. I love the unwinding idea, because after like a day of just like absolutely like grinding and working, like being busy and like not really having time to think, like the best way to unwind is like just do whatever you want before you go to bed. Like it feels so nice, and it's such like it's so therapeutic.
yeah. I was gonna say, like, I love my self-care.
Yeah.
Kind of going with the singleness part now. Yeah, I love my self-care and I wouldn't give it up for anything in the world. So
Same.
like yeah, it's a priority now.
So, speaking of self-care, we are both single girl healing era. So I wanted to hear more about like how you utilize self-care. Honestly, just like what you've done to cope after a breakup, because obviously what self-care has done for you, what your personal journey of being single has done for your personal growth, stuff like that.
I've almost been single for like a year now.
Gosh,
It's crazy to think
yeah.
about. Um,
So much changes in a year.
yeah, and I didn't think I would be where I am right now, like right after it happened. Um, yeah. I would say a lot of my singleness healing journey was actually a lot of like lack of self-care and lack of self-respect. Um,
Interesting.
and I think that's why I value it so much now, because like how are you going to find someone to treat you the way you want to be treated and like treat you well if you don't already treat yourself well and like love yourself? Um, so I think that's a big reason as to why I value it so much too.
What do
Like
you
no one
sorry.
else is gonna take care of me. I gotta take care of myself. So
What do you mean by you said like lack of self-care? Are you talking about like earlier on in the past?
yeah, like it's been a whole healing journey.
Yeah.
It's fun. I saw this TikTok and it was like stages of a breakup and it like perfectly outlined everything and
Mhm.
how like you're like okay, and then you're like you go up for a little bit and then you have like this hard crash down and like this like major depressive episode. I was like, yeah. And like during this episode, I feel like I just had like a huge identity crisis, did a lot of shit where I like kind of just like lost myself. Like all of my actions were kind of like I didn't respect myself, I didn't value myself. Um, yeah, that was like during my social media hiatus too. And so like yeah, nothing was good there. And it was just like a journey of like, okay, I should probably love myself. Like,
Figuring out that what you don't want to do instead.
yeah.
Yeah. I completely relate. Not this time, but like the last time I got my heart broken, I did like the same thing where I was just like you said, doing things that didn't really align with who I was, because I was like, at that point, you don't really know who you are until you take a step back and you're like, oh, okay, these actions don't align with what I want to be or who I want to be. And that's why I'm now learning from that and doing actions that do align with who I want to be.
Yeah. Although I am like a big advocate of like everything happens for a reason.
Exactly.
I'm like, although I wish I could take a lot of stuff back, I learned from it.
Did, yeah.
And yeah, no, like, yeah.
I feel the exact same way. It's like sometimes I look back at like the cringy or like all the stuff that I did in the past, and I'm like, everything happens for a reason, but that was definitely something that like I would not do again. But at the same time, it like shapes you to be better, and you can look back at a past version of yourself and realize like you did the best you could at the time.
That's
You
that's a big thing actually, and like empathizing with your past self. It's
Mhm.
like, yes, I wouldn't do that now, but I'm also like I've grown so much. So like yeah, maybe that was the best. That was the best that she had. So
Sure.
go off you. So
But like you mentioned, like your unwinding like nighttime routine, like are there any other like practices or things that you just really love doing for yourself that you want to like bring up or share for other people to like maybe try when they're practicing self-care?
um what else is
Just
there?
set shifts.
Um I don't know why I'm so odd when I bring this up. I like to like meditate.
Not at all. I meditate
And
too.
okay, I don't know what, like when I tell some people that, they look at me like I'm crazy, and I'm like, what? Like I'm just like in tune with myself, and honestly, I love it.
Mhm.
Um, and I feel like it's helped my focus on things too. Or if I don't want to like hyper focus on things, it helps me because I can just like clear my mind faster.
Yeah, just
So,
a couple of minutes just to clear your mind, like release all those like overwhelming thoughts.
mhm.
Do you do like guided meditations?
I started off with like 5 minute guided meditations, and now like usually after I finish my training sessions, there's like a sauna at my gym. So I'll just go sit in the sauna and close my eyes
I
for
love
like
that. I used to go in the sauna, but you know what was like so good about it is that you like have to focus on your breath work because it like sucks. So you have to like not indulge like, oh my gosh, it's really like hot in here and I can't wait to get out. It goes by slower when you think like that, but when you focus on your breath and like really just like get in tune with your mind body connection, oh, you just reminded me that I love the sauna.
yeah. And I've had some like really good like meditation sessions, I guess I would call it, where I
Cool.
like I feel like so at peace after, and then I like hop out and I'm like, that was a really good session. Like
That's so cool. I
so
love that. Speaking of like I guess the sauna and like being at the gym, I know like a huge thing on like gym talk, bless you, is
right.
doing the gym like therapy. And what your opinion on that is, because I know a lot of people say the gym is therapy as a joke, but a lot of people mean it like genuinely. And I think that's almost a toxic mindset to have. Um, because they're escaping. Like the gym is like one of the best, healthiest coping mechanisms you can have, but also acknowledging that like you need to have the actual meditation, actual self care as well. What do you think?
Yeah. I think we're on like the same page when it comes to that, and like the gym is therapy, and I think that's like an unpopular opinion in gym culture on like TikTok and stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't find it cringy. I just think when people say that, I'm like, Kate, you still have a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
Like, that's I guess that's kind of how I see it. Um, because I'm like I've done the work. I've gone to actual therapy.
Right.
And
It's
the
not
gym
the
is
same.
not, it's not the same.
No. Right.
Like so I was so used to make jokes that like the gym is just like a breeding grounds for like toxic people and toxic relationships then if like you guys are all using it as therapy because you got some other work to do. So
No. It's like it's great to put your pain and anger and all these negative feelings into bettering yourself. Like again, like the gym is like probably the best, healthiest coping mechanisms that you could do. And it's like I'd prefer that over like drugs and other unhealthy coping mechanisms. But at the same time, you have to acknowledge that like you can't just lift and ignore all the shadow work that needs to be done and ignore your emotions.
yeah. Or I think yeah, there's that. And I think if people treat the gym as therapy, but they also have like specific gym goals, then they'll probably never be happy when they get to those gym goals, if
Sure.
that makes sense, because
You're always like constantly unhappy and not covering like the underlying actual issues.
exactly. So yeah, I definitely don't think the gym is therapy though. And also like at my lowest points, I had such a hard time with training and like getting my ass to the gym. So I was like, how do people use this as therapy? Like this, it was not fun at that point. So
Yeah. Well, especially like when you are in your lowest points, it's like you're allowed to need rest. You're allowed to take like that time off because the gym will always be there when you get back.
that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also don't stay in that like phase for too long. Okay. I think that was a good way to wrap up this episode. Thank you for talking to me about your experience with all things powerlifting, body image, all that stuff. I hope you guys listening took some value away from this podcast. If you want to check out Anne, do you want to plug your socials? Let them know where they can find you if they enjoy this episode and want to find you.
Yeah, if you want to find me, my ad is Fit by Ann on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, everything.
You have a YouTube? I'm gonna follow you.
I'm not that active on there. I want to. Honestly, I feel like YouTube would be so fun, or just like longer format
Yeah.
video, or even like podcasts and stuff. Like I feel like it'd be,
I'm gonna
but
subscribe to
my
you.
plate is so full right now, so it's a later project.
I get that. Well, thank you for joining us. Again, follow Anne if you're interested to hear what she has to say and you want to hear more about her story, about her mindset posts. I love her content. She talks a lot about strength, but also a lot about mindset, which is a huge thing that we obviously uncovered. Thank you again for joining me, and I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Everything will be in the description, and thank you for watching.